Have you ever looked at a humanoid robot or a realistic digital character and felt a sudden, inexplicable shiver down your spine? You are likely experiencing the uncanny valley, a psychological phenomenon first described in 1970 by the Japanese roboticist Masahiro Mori. Mori noticed a strange pattern in how humans react to artificial beings. He found that as a robot becomes more human-like, our sense of affinity and empathy for it increases, but only up to a certain point. When a robot or animation becomes almost perfectly human, but fails to reach total realism, our emotional response doesn't just level off. It plunges into a deep valley of revulsion, fear, and unease. We stop seeing a cute machine and start seeing a creepy imitation. This is why a simple, boxy robot like Wall-E feels friendly and safe, while a hyper-realistic prosthetic hand or an almost human android can feel like something out of a nightmare. Mori's original theory was represented by a simple graph. The peak of the graph shows our love for things that are clearly artificial but cute. The valley is the abrupt drop where things become too real for comfort. Interestingly, Mori argued that movement makes this effect much stronger. A still statue might look slightly off, but once an almost human face starts to blink or smile in a way that is just a fraction of a second too slow, the uncanny feeling becomes overwhelming. This phenomenon is not just a quirk of robotics. It has become a major hurdle for Hollywood and the video game industry. Whenever we try to play God by recreating the human form perfectly, we risk falling into this psychological trap where the harder we try to make something look alive, the more it reminds us of the dead. Why does our brain react to a nearly human face with such intense primal fear? Scientists have spent decades trying to figure out why we are so good at spotting imposters. One of the leading theories is based on pathogen avoidance. Throughout human evolution, we had to be incredibly sensitive to the physical signs of disease or death. When we see a robot with skin that is just a little too gray or eyes that don't quite track a movement properly, our evolutionary instincts scream that something is wrong. Our brain interprets that uncanny face as a potential source of infection or a lifeless corpse, triggering a flight or fight response to keep us away from danger. Another fascinating explanation is the violation of expectations. Our brains are prediction machines. We have spent every second of our lives learning exactly how a human face should move, breathe, and blink. When we look at a social robot, our brain automatically categorizes it as human. But the moment that robot makes a micro-expression that is 1 millisecond off, it creates a massive cognitive dissonance. It's as if your brain's internal software has crashed because the data it's receiving doesn't match the human template it has stored. This tiny error creates a profound sense of unease that we can't quite put into words. Recent studies using functional MRI scans have actually pinpointed the area of the brain responsible for this creepy feeling. It happens in the parietal cortex, a region that connects our visual system to the part of our brain that controls our own motor movements. When this area sees a robot moving in a not quite right way, it sends out an error signal that disrupts our sense of social connection. We aren't just being picky. Our biology is literally hardwired to detect anything that tries to mimic us but fails the human test. This biological wall is so high that even monkeys have been shown to experience the uncanny valley. In a famous experiment, macaques were shown computer-generated images of other monkeys. Just like humans, they preferred the clearly fake cartoons and the real photos, but they absolutely hated the high-realism digital versions. This suggests that the uncanny valley isn't just a modern reaction to technology. It is an ancient survival mechanism that has been protecting primates from wrong social cues for millions of years. While scientists were studying the biology of creepiness, Hollywood was accidentally spending hundreds of millions of dollars falling headfirst into the uncanny valley. In the early 2000s, filmmakers became obsessed with motion capture technology. They believed that if they could record every tiny movement of a human actor and skin it with a digital character, they could create the perfect, lifelike human. But instead of creating wonder, they created some of the most unsettling images in cinematic history. The most famous example is the 2004 film The Polar Express. While the technology was groundbreaking, audiences were famously terrified by the character's eyes. Because the software at the time couldn't perfectly replicate the microsaccades, the tiny, constant jitters that human eyes make, the characters looked like vacant, glass-eyed zombies. Even though the skin looked real and the voices were provided by Tom Hanks, the dead eyes triggered the biological alarm system we discussed in Part 2. It was a massive financial success, but it remains the textbook example of how a near miss in realism can ruin a story's emotional connection. The industry hit another wall with the 2011 film Mars Needs Moms. Disney and Image Movers Digital spent $150 million trying to reach the other side of the valley. However, the hyperrealistic textures combined with slightly jerky digital movement made the characters feel like skin suits rather than living beings. The film became one of the biggest box office bombs in history. Critics and audiences alike pointed to the uncanny valley effect as the primary reason they couldn't connect with the movie. It proved that if you can't be backslash 100 backslash percent backslash real, you are better off being a stylized cartoon. Even modern blockbusters struggle with this. When Star Wars Rogue One used CGI to resurrect actors like Peter Cushing, the debate reignited. Some fans found it a technological marvel, while many others felt an immediate sense of revulsion. It showed that even with the world's best computers, the human brain is still the ultimate lie detector. We have spent millions of years evolving to recognize our own kind, and we don't like it when a machine tries to trick our instincts. While Hollywood was bleeding money in the valley, companies like Pixar and Nintendo were perfecting the art of subrealism. They realized that if you want an audience to love a character, the worst thing you can do is make it look almost like a real human. Instead, they leaned into stylization. By exaggerating features, giving characters enormous eyes, simplified skin textures, and expressive, bouncy movements, they bypassed the brain's imposter alarm entirely. This is why we can feel deep, crying-level empathy for a trash-compacting robot or a talking toy, but feel nothing but coldness for a hyper-realistic digital human. This design philosophy is rooted in a biological concept called neoteny, or the baby schema. Humans are hardwired to respond with nurturing and affection to anything with large eyes, a high forehead, and a small chin. These are the physical traits of infants, and our brains are programmed to find them irresistible. Designers at Disney and DreamWorks use this cuteness to create a bridge of safety. Because these characters are so clearly not human, our brains don't compare them to our human template. We suspend our disbelief and allow ourselves to connect emotionally without the cognitive dissonance that creates the creepy feeling. In the world of consumer robotics, this has led to a major shift in how we build machines for our homes. Think about the Roomba or the Starship delivery robots. They don't have faces, and they certainly don't have skin. Yet, people often give their Roombas names, talk to them, and even feel sad if they get stuck under a couch. By remaining safely on the artificial side of the valley, these machines become endearing tools rather than threatening intruders. They don't try to trick us into thinking they are alive, so we are free to project life onto them on our own terms. The most successful social robots today, like Pepper or Ibwa, are designed to be cartoonish on purpose. They might have glowing LED eyes or mechanical joints that are clearly visible. This transparency is actually a psychological safety net. It tells the human brain, I am a machine, and I am not a threat to your social order. By staying far away from the peak of human realism, these robots can successfully live among us without triggering a single shiver of revulsion. We are now living in the moment where the uncanny valley is finally being bridged, but the results are more complicated than we ever imagined. For 50 years, the valley was a safety rail. It let us know when we were being lied to by a machine. But with the rise of generative artificial intelligence and deepfakes, we are starting to climb up the far side of the slope. We are entering an era where digital humans can be indistinguishable from biological ones, and the creepy feeling is starting to vanish, replaced by something much more dangerous. Total deception. In the world of digital resurrection, the technology has moved from zombie-like characters to startlingly lifelike recreations. When Lucasfilm used advanced deepfake algorithms to de-age Luke Skywalker for The Mandalorian, the response was different than it had been for earlier attempts. By using neural networks to study thousands of hours of real footage, The AI was able to recreate the tiny, subconscious eye movements and skin microtextures that previous animators had missed. For many viewers, the valley had finally been conquered. The brain's alarm system simply stopped ringing. However, crossing the valley comes with a massive ethical and social cost. If our brains can no longer detect a glitch in a digital human, we lose our natural defense against misinformation. We are moving into a future where virtual influencers and AI news anchors can look, move, and speak with the same warmth and sincerity as your best friend. The uncanny valley used to protect us from being tricked. Without it, we have to rely entirely on digital watermarking and fact-checking tools to know what is real. Ultimately, the story of the uncanny valley is the story of our own self-recognition. As we perfect the art of the perfect human imitation, we are forced to ask, what is it that actually makes us human? Is it just the way our skin reflects light, or the way our eyes jitter? Or is there something ineffable and soulful that a machine can never truly capture, no matter how many billions of parameters it processes? We have successfully built the bridge, but as we walk across it, we might find that the mirror of technology is telling us more about ourselves than we were ever prepared to see.